Sorry about that, but...
Welcome to UFO Undercover with your host, Joe Montaldo.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of UFO Undercover. As Natasha says, I am your host, Joe Montaldo. I hope everyone's having a great morning, great afternoon, great evening, wherever you are on our beautiful blue planet. Guys, you know, Earth is a great place to live. I mean, come on, it's beautiful. When you see it, anywhere you look, it's beautiful. I live down in a swamp. I love it down here. It's great. I've traveled all over the country. It's beautiful. You know, I got friends from all over the world. Come on. Get off the downside, guys. Get on the good side. Anyway, enough of all that. Tonight's guest is going to be Dr. Lynne Kitei. Most of y'all should be familiar with Dr. Lynne. It's not shame on you. I know she was just a recent speaker out at the IFC, so I'm looking forward to talking to her as well. Also, she is a real doctor. I'm not talking about, you know, a doctor to this or a doctor that. No, she is actually a real doctor. What amazes me about this, the first time I talked to Dr. Lynne, oh, God, it was 6, 7, 8, it was at least 8 years ago. And when she had told me she was kind of leaving her career to pursue the Phoenix Lights, I was stunned. I mean, you know, professional doctors make good money. And to give this up and simple joy of helping people because of something she's seen. Now, for me, it's not that unknown because, you know, I work with a lot of abductees, and this tends to be common amongst them. These will change their whole entire life over something that's happened to them. But to meet someone like Dr. Lynne, I was quite stunned and quite impressed at the same time. So, you know, I was like, well, I got to interview her. I want to talk to her about it. And the very first interview we did was way back on Wake Up USA, way back when. And it's a really good interview. It's still available, by the way, even today. You can still find it out there. And, you know, I've listened to her talk over the years on several occasions, and I heard some of the stuff that Dr. Bruce Maccabee said. And frankly, I haven't heard her vary from what she told me from the first time. So, Dr. Lynne, welcome to the show. I wanted to pay you a compliment on that because I have interviewed people over the years that had told me one thing 10 years ago and are saying something entirely different today. So,
well, that's a really good point. It's a compliment, Joe, and I really appreciate that. But you know what? It is what it is, and that was one of the reasons that I came forward, because I really tried to do my homework. I mean, I knew nothing about this topic at all, as you know, and I wanted to educate myself, certainly before I could educate others. And what was very ironic is that for the last 35 years, that's what I've been doing with the community. I've been educating not only adults but children on the reality of vital health issues. And when this fell in my lap, I knew nothing about this topic at all, but had a very close sighting 2 years before the mass sighting, captured pictures of it, didn't even know who to show them to, but wondered what this advanced technology was doing right outside our window, even a little lower than we are. We are pretty high in the mountains. And finally, the lights came back 2 years later, actually 2 months before the mass sighting. And whether it was a scientist in me or having experienced what I did and didn't have an explanation for it from 95, I felt compelled to document these orbs and these anomalous aerial phenomena in different formations on film, up into and including the 3 points of light, like the end points of a giant V or triangle, which thousands of people saw prior and even after I shot the video on March 13th. But what was significant, actually, was 2 months before, I happened to catch the same phenomena, mile-wide phenomena, of these orbs head-on, turning into a V shape. 6 pictures in a row, and anyone that's interested in looking at the data, and that was one of the reasons I had to come forward, because I have such a unique collection of these anomalies that I have gone to extreme lengths to have explained to me at university level, University of Arizona, Optical Science Department, Consciousness Study Department, Arizona State University, Geology, Anthropology, Mathematics, Astronomy departments, as well as the renowned Brooks Institute of Photography, and as you mentioned, Dr. Bruce Maccabee, and others as well, that across the board, no one could give me an answer to what these phenomena were. And that night, 2 months before the mass sighting, it was so unnerving because it was so massive, and that I started calling around the next morning and actually found air traffic controllers at Sky Harbor International Airport who saw the same thing at the same time. In fact, they were alarmed because these phenomena popped up in Class B restricted airspace, which is a 30-mile radius around the center of the airport, particularly 1,000 feet altitude as these were, must call into the tower to let them know they're coming there. And nobody did. So they looked on radar. And this is really significant data. did not show up on radar. And they took their binoculars, their high-powered binoculars, to look. And in their own words, they described 6 points of light, totally equidistant to each other, massive span over a mile wide, that seemed to be attached to something, but they couldn't quite see what it was attached to. And you would hear this over and over again 2 months later during the mass sighting by many people, and turned against the wind as a unit. In fact, one of the air traffic controllers was a meteorologist, so he knew what I was talking about at this 1,000 feet altitude, and then moved up and slowly over the mountain as a unit in synchrony. And when I asked, well, what was it? There was silence, and then one of the air traffic controllers said, beats me. And I said, you're air traffic controllers. You're supposed to know what's in our airspace. And they had no idea. In fact, they ruled out flares or anything that was known to them. And we kept in contact. I continued photographing these orbs, these balls of light. And by the way, the video doesn't do it justice. In the video, they're much smaller. They're white. They flicker. In real life, they're huge, huge balls of seem like spinning energy. But at any rate, up until and including March 13th. Now, once thousands of people saw what I had seen, and there's so much to this story, and I find out a week later that this is happening worldwide. That's the first I heard of it. I had no idea these phenomena were happening, and then learned that other countries are much more open to them as being unearthly, and it really sent me on a tailspin because I knew nothing about this. And at that point, when I learned it was happening worldwide, and that thousands of people had seen what I had seen right above their heads. I mean, for anybody out there that's not familiar with the mass sighting, March 13th, 1997, and we're coming up on the 15th anniversary. I can't believe it's 15 years. We're talking thousands of people were outside purposely on a beautiful, clear night looking up at the sky for a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet. It was very clear in the northwest sky that night. And while they're looking up, they also caught a glimpse of 1 mile to 2 mile wide, either these lights that seemed to be attached to something, totally equidistant from each other. And some people saw it go right over their heads. Not only did some people see that there was like kind of a force field in between that was blocking out the stars, other people actually saw craft. And there were many things happening. I have to tell you, the media and certainly debunkers got it wrong. I mean, they talk about 1 or 2 events, okay, and separate events. There were many events on March 13th, starting at 3 in the afternoon. We have reports, daylight reports, at 3 in the afternoon and 5:30 in New Mexico, 7:15 in California, 11:30 in Nevada, and then 5:30 the next morning, we have Boeing crewmen that were coming into work, and they see this massive object hovering over their tarmac. So this was many, many hours and many different events, not only the orb events. Some people saw craft, actual craft. In fact, on the website, the phoenixlights.net, the Phoenix Lights Network, which is packed with information, besides the photo page, which is pretty interesting in and of itself, we have the GAP page, GAP, which is Geospatial Animation Project. It was a project for 12-year compilation of hundreds of reports to the National UFO Reporting Center in Seattle, Washington, and to Councilwoman Vice Mayor Frances Barwood. She received over 1,000 reports from her constituents. Village Labs, which was a clearinghouse here locally, and also did analysis of Jim Delatoso and Michael Tanner. And Michael Tanner was one of the people that compiled this with Bill Hamilton, and Larry Lowe did the depictions, the illustrations, a beautiful job, and also Arizona MUFON reports as well. So we're talking hundreds and hundreds of reports. When there were multiple reports of the same object, they made an illustration of it, and it turns out that there were like 8 or 9 different depictions. Now, whether it was one craft that could be, or different craft, like a parade of different crafts, because there were multiple things happening at the same time, or it was, just a perspective from where the person was standing, and it looked differently. We may never know, but the fact is there was a parade throughout the state, and some people, and we're talking very low altitude, we're talking rooftop altitude, gliding very, very slowly, totally silent, didn't even displace the air around it, and some people saw it take off at blink speed no sonic boom, no displacement of air. Other people saw it. Actually, if you look at the pictures, 8 or 9 different craft, and one of the craft split in two. Other craft shot straight up. Some people saw these orbs detach from the main object, go out into the environment, and then redock with it. I mean, incredible technology, to be sure. So there were many things happening on March 13th, 1997, not just one or two things. Certainly the bulk of the people were outside between 8 and 10 that reported what they were seeing, because that's when most of the people were outside looking up when it got dark, and then they were going to bed. So, even though the bulk of the people were reporting between 8 and 10, there were sightings prior to and after that as well.
Well, I know there was a lot of sightings. I remember, I was sitting in my living room, wasn't even doing anything significant, hanging around, and a friend called and said, "Did you hear about the Phoenix lights?" And I said, "What, they have lights in Phoenix?" "Yeah, I'm sure they do." Just be a smartass. And he's like, no, really. He said it was a mass UFO sighting. I said, "Well, what kind of UFO was it?" And instantly he gets into this. He starts talking about this huge thing flying across the sky. Well, he calls a friend of mine, a joint friend of ours who lives out there, and he said, "No, I didn't see it." He said, "But I do know 2 other people that did." And, of course, that was the very first time I ever talked about anybody that had anything to do with it. Didn't even interview any of the witnesses until, I want to say 98 or 99, I think was the first interview that I did about it. And that's when I actually started learning more about, what was going on. Was it not flares? Was it flares? Could it have been this? Could it have been that? Was it, 3 different objects that made it just look like one giant triangle and things like this? But now, and we are talking 15 years. The case has been very well investigated, and there are several good people that have looked into this. Most everybody's basically come up with the same conclusions, that it's not ours. It was something entirely not from this planet.
Right.
And I remember hearing, I had a nice long conversation with Dr. Bruce McAfee about this at one of the conferences. I can't remember which one it was. And matter of fact, Dr. Lear was there, because Dr. Lear and I were presenting. I think McAfee was just there, and we were all just sitting there talking about it. And he was talking about your photos, and he was talking about some other stuff he had seen, and some videotapes somebody, I guess, had sent him as well that he had been looking at. And he was pretty much convinced that it was something other than extraterrestrial.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. Joe, when you have so much data, and that's one of the things as a scientist, and also it was very precarious for me to come forward, and I didn't. For 7 years, I stayed anonymous doing my homework. I didn't know what to do with what I had, quite frankly, except that I went to extreme lengths to have it explained to me. I wish somebody today would tell me what it is. And, when you see how the story unfolds, it's really very curious, because there was no investigation. There was no explanation for months. It was uncanny. Here something goes right above people's heads. In fact, some people, we have a pilot in the documentary who is fabulous. He's a military pilot from Vietnam, a commercial pilot now, and this thing went right over his head. And he actually looked up, and there were a couple other witnesses in the documentary too, that looked up into this well. They would call it a well or a canister of light. Giant, huge well of like gaseous or kind of look like when you look at a mirage, it's so different than anything you could ever imagine happening. It didn't glare or illuminate at all, which of course flares do. But at any rate, there was no investigation, no explanation. We're talking a public safety issue, if nothing else, and even. To the wall. I have to tell you, every person that came forward in their own way got criticized or ridiculed. I was very, very happy to stay anonymous and do my homework, and I really wanted to make sure what we were dealing with before I would ever come forward, if ever. I really didn't want to come forward, but I let my data out there, because that's what's important. It's not about me. It's about the data, and if people can see what we saw, then hooray. Then that's what's important. Let them decide what it is. But at any rate, I started to keep an intricate journal after the mass sighting happened, and I found out a week later that it was happening worldwide, searching meticulously for a a logical explanation. I've yet to find one. 7 years later, I had a 750-page journal that I didn't know what to do with. And in good conscience, as an educator, I just couldn't stick it in a drawer. I have to say I did a lot of soul searching, and that's a whole other story on whether to come forward with it. But I knew if I didn't come forward, it would probably just sit on a shelf, and nobody would ever read it. So I actually went back to work to help put our younger son through medical school. He's a neurologist now. And for 3 years, I pared down the book. For 4 years, I pushed my entire professional life aside. And then for the other 3, while I was working, I was paring down the 750-page journal to the 230-page original book that I came out with, The Phoenix Lights, A Skeptic's Discovery That We Are Not Alone. I am still skeptical. I'd really love somebody to show me what's really interesting is that not until the June 18th USA Today article, I have to tell you, that really opened up our sighting to international scrutiny. For the first time, media from all over the world were talking to witnesses and hearing their heartfelt and descriptions and detailed descriptions and saying, too, why isn't there an investigation? Something extraordinary happened throughout the state of Arizona, and there's no investigation. Suddenly, the very next day, and it's interesting to see how this all unfolded when you really look at the data. It speaks for itself. The very next day, the former governor of Fife-Symington called a press conference, unscheduled press conference in the afternoon, saying that they had found the culprit of the lights. I mean, he was really being pressured, I'm sure, by the media to do something. And he comes marching out, one of his aides with a giant alien head. And, you know, I have to say, I mean, many of the witnesses were really distraught that he did that and made a joke and a mockery, particularly the parents that were with children. And there were a lot of children outside, and they were playing their sports games or going to the mall or whatever. And, you know, he's making a joke of this. It went right over their heads. And this massive mile to 2 mile wide in some credible descriptions. It was just unbelievable that he would do that, but he did. And disappointed a lot of people, I have to say. You know, there was another month that passed. And I had done my homework as well with the military. I had called every military base to find out if they knew anything and to educate myself on the possibilities. Was it flares or whatever? And they were more interested in hearing what I documented and giving an explanation. They didn't know either. In fact, I have some of the conversations in my book, and it's quite comical. They were just as curious as everybody else. Suddenly, I get a call from one of the PR people at the Air National Guard saying, "Oh, Dr. Lynne, I think we know what those lights were back in March." I said, "You do?" And she said, "Yes, do you believe nobody ever looked at the log for visiting Air National Guard?" This is July 24th, okay, months later. She says, "Nobody ever looked at the Guard, and the Maryland Air National Guard was in town sending off flares in Operation Snowbird," which I have subsequently learned from military people means diversionary tactical maneuvers in military terms. Which, by the way, Joe, I mean, you know, I can't even imagine that they didn't send off some flares here and there. But there is not one witness that I've talked to, not one, that has described anything remotely similar to what flares look like. But I said to her, and she said to me, "That must be what some people saw." That's what she said. And I said, "Well, when was the Maryland Air National Guard in town?" She said, March 1st to the 15th. And I said, "Well, were they in town in January?" She said, "No." I said, "Are you sure?" She said, "Oh, absolutely not." I said, "Well, I have 35-millimeter photographs of the same exact phenomena in the same exact location, confirmed the following morning, on March 13th, too, by the way, as hovering in 1,000 feet altitude over Class B restricted airspace." And she says, "You never told me that." And then I said, "Besides that," I said, "you're trying to say that flares," and I had educated myself to flare characteristics by then, military illumination flares that they professed that they deployed. I said, "You're trying to say that flares that are deployed from an aircraft haphazardly. I mean, they have parachute and they just fall with the wind. and float with the wind down in minutes, by the way, and have huge smoke trails illuminated by the flare itself and are supposed to illuminate the ground around it, which, by the way, no one described, not one person described. And you're trying to say that flares that cannot keep a formation traverse the entire state for hours in an equidistant, rock-solid, mile-wide V? And she said, I have a call coming in. I'll get back to you. Well, I'm still waiting.
Well,
and not only that, I'm sorry. And not only that, yeah, not only that, but right after I talked to her, and actually I was talking to an extra producer, so she, I filled her in, and so she's witness to what happened there. But I then called my sister-in-law. This is interesting, in Delaware, to wish her a happy birthday. It was her birthday, July 24th. And the first thing she said to me when she answered the phone was, oh, they just showed that those lights that you saw back in March were flares. They heard it before we did. It wasn't announced here in Phoenix until the following morning in the paper. So, I mean, when you start connecting the dots and you start looking, putting the puzzle pieces together, there's some holes here and there. And then even after they professed that it was flares, it was like, okay, now, first of all, I had pictures that I knew were of these unknowns, not only on March 13th, but 2 months before. And if you look at the pictures on the photo page on the phoenixlights.net, you will see that the same exact phenomena, the same exact location as 97 2 months before and during the mass sighting, disappearing when the closed orbs are disappearing. That's what I was focused on, the closed orbs. So I knew that whoever did this did it 3 times at least, and it has happened since as well. But at the time, it was like, okay, somebody did it 3 times, do it again, reenact it. And a lot of other people were asking for that too, including Francis Barwood, who was then 3 years later running for Secretary of State on a platform to get answers about the Phoenix Lights and also pushing for a reenactment. Suddenly, we get this announcement right before the 3rd anniversary that 3 Air National Guard, most people don't know this. Unless you read my book, you do not know this. 3 Air National, or saw it here locally, 3 Air National Guards came into town and announced it big time that they were going to be sending off flares to show everyone the Phoenix Lights. And I believe it was New York, California, and Michigan, if I'm correct. But at any rate, everybody was ready, including the media. And I have to tell you that, it was the perfect storm. I mean, it was a joke. I mean, it just was a failure for them. And if anybody's on the website and goes to the news page on the Phoenix Lights Network and clicks on Arizona AZ Family 3, we did a report last year where they actually showed the footage of the flare drop from 2000. And, they tried to make a triangle. It was upside down. It fell apart immediately, had huge smoke trails. And, it really convinced the people who had seen the real unknowns that it definitely was not flares. And by the way, Joe, the Phoenix Lights have never been reenacted in 15 years.
Yeah, no, I always thought that was kind of weird that they hadn't actually done it. And too, one point, you made a point for me, and I tell this to everybody all the time. If you see something weird in the sky, film it. Just stop whatever you're doing and film it. Come on, it doesn't take that much time. And today's cameras, let's be honest, are very advanced. I got a nice little camera now. It's got built-in hard driving on stuff, and I can plug it in a computer and download everything instantly. And it's fantastic, and people need to get out there and just film. Because I got to be honest.
Looking up. Go ahead. I'm sorry. But 35 millimeter. 35 millimeter is the best way, by the way. Digital, sometimes, when you try to get close, the pixels break apart. 35 millimeter, if you could possibly, infrared would be better, but 35 millimeter, if you can possibly capture these phenomena, is the best way.
I was talking with one of my directors the other day. We were talking about this. He's out in New Mexico, and we were talking about you and the Phoenix Lights. And they both came to the same conclusion. If you wouldn't have gotten involved, I don't think it would have got as much play. I really have to say I think it would have got pushed away a lot faster, and it would have got a lot less attention.
I appreciate that, Joe, because the truth of it is that, and I believe me, I can't take all the credit because some wonderful people came forward, and I couldn't have done the documentary if the people didn't, the witnesses and the experts and the professors that I worked with didn't join in. And also the former governor came forward after the 10th anniversary and admitted that he saw it too and that it was otherworldly. But in 2004, when I came forward, and this is the truth of it, the official and accepted, except for the witnesses, of course, explanation of the Phoenix Lights was that it was merely military illumination flares. That was it. And there were a couple of television programs that really promoted that big time, to where even now, I mean, it's so frustrating, and I laugh. I mean, people do blogs even now, even today. there was a piece in the Arizona Republic, and people are still saying, "Oh, they're just flares." Well, you know what? I know when somebody says that they haven't looked at the data. They're just, and by the way, I mean, everybody's background, from a different upbringing, from a different belief system, worldview, and some people can't deal with this. Some people don't want to deal with this, and that's okay if it gives somebody comfort to feed into a logical explanation like flares, because believe me, I was looking for any logical explanation, and I totally understand that mindset, then so be it. Everyone in their own time. But if you really want to learn the truth and you want to learn the facts and you want to learn what's really going on, not just in Arizona, but worldwide. I mean, this is happening worldwide and for centuries, actually. And, and I have to say that, other countries are much more open to these things being unearthly. And in fact, as we know, just in the past couple of years, France and UK and Belgium have released thousands of UFO files and said, hey, we have documentation here of aerial phenomena that is advanced, that is not ours. And it's time we take a look at it and, find out what's going on. And I totally agree. I mean, Joe, I don't know what these things are, but I know that they are. And it's time we get this out in the open and address it, accept it, and study it. And
we need
really, so that we can find out not only who's driving these things, but move forward in our own evolution. It's like enough already with the ridicule and the criticism and the ostracizing and the discrediting. Most things can be explained, that's for sure. Just a small percentage can't. But just because we don't have the technology yet to definitively define what these things are, it doesn't mean they're not real. Okay? It took us 17 centuries before the advent of the microscope to realize there are zillions of microorganisms all around us, even in our bodies. And, some are beneficial, some are pathogens, even harm us. But we've learned to deal with it. And just so, like, we can't see radio waves and what we're talking through now, I mean, it's amazing. We don't have the capability in our own containers to definitively define, and we don't have the technology to definitively define what these things are. But it doesn't mean they're not real. In fact, if you go on the photo page of the Phoenix Lights Network, thephoenixlights.net, when you go to the bottom, there's two pictures. These are really, I think, really powerful messages to this, because I collect sunsets, and that's why I had my 35 millimeter handy when I took pictures of the orbs. And I have like 5 or 6 books of sunsets, and I took 5 rolls of film around the holidays in 2000. And this was shortly after they sent off the flares, by the way, and just months later. And I did not see these objects when I was looking in the sky, but in the negatives on 2 different rolls, 2 different nights, and the sunsets are beautiful, by the way, there's a huge rod-shaped, cigar-shaped object in the same spot, okay, which, when you think about that, and we've also heard of these rod-shaped objects not only worldwide, some people call them motherships, but they've been seen here in Arizona, particularly by Superstition Mountains here, that they've seen these, orbs or little craft come out from them. Even in Navajo Nation, we have Navajo Rangers who are going to be speaking at our event that we have coming up for the 15th anniversary celebration at the Scottsdale Hark and Shea Theater on March 11th at 1 o'clock. Anybody in the neighborhood, please join us. In fact, I would advise getting tickets now, because it's been sold out every year, because it's fascinating. I mean, not only do we show the documentary, but You also have a little presentation after Meet the Cast. Councilwoman Frances Barwood's going to be there and speak for a little bit. Travis Walton's supposed to show up, as well as these Navajo Rangers. And, boy, I'm telling you, the stories that they have to tell that they're just telling for the first time, and there's actually activity as we speak that is just fascinating. And Steve Lance, who is my collaborator on the film, will be there hosting the Q&A, and I'll be doing a book signing. So it's really fun. So anybody in the neighborhood, please, get on my Facebook page or Phoenix Lights Network page on Facebook, and the information is there, or on the website, the phoenixlights.net website. And please join us, because it's really an experience. I mean, when people come there as strangers, they leave not only with a different worldview and mindset, but they feel connected. There's an energy that happens just during our event that is just amazing, and people come back every year. So
it is amazing that to me it's amazing that it has as much life as it does. People are still interested in the case, but y'all present a good argument for it, so it's always plus. And as far as the flare things go, I was a plane captain on the U.S. and I've seen many flares. I got to say, none of them really look like UFOs. I mean, maybe at a distance to the untrained eye, you might think it's a little weird, but they are moving at a fairly clip, and if there's any kind of breeze out blowing at all, they tend to move off on an angle, just perpendicular to the ground.
Absolutely, and you're making a really good point, Joe, because like I said earlier, the video doesn't do it justice, and they've used the video. I mean, whoever thought of the flare thing was brilliant, and they had to come up with something. I mean, come on, they had the USA Today article came out. They were being inundated with the former governor talks about hysteria. Well, there was no hysteria with the witnesses. I have to say that straight out. There has not been one, in fact, not one report that I'm aware of, intimately involved with this investigation, of harm, threat, or abduction associated with the Phoenix Lights. If anything, it's quite the contrary. If we have time, we can get into that, even in real and long-term time. Just an amazing, amazing experience for every single person that experienced the Phoenix Lights. They were in awe and in wonder and excitement and felt a connection to the phenomena. That doesn't happen with flares and blimps, okay? So, in and of itself, when you look at the psychological component, but on the other side, many shows have tried to show, or a few shows have tried to show, that the boomerang, which, by the way, and this is the other important data, myself, who shot the 3 points of light before 10 o'clock, about 10 of 10 when the ad for the upcoming news was coming on, is when we actually saw the 6 lights appear. And by the time I got out there, 3 had disappeared, and I caught the 3 above the city, confirmed by air traffic controllers as being in Class B restricted airspace when the 6 first popped up. And Steve Blonder, another witness, was actually documenting them for days before, just as I was. And he has fabulous video of these orbs, these spinning balls of energy, and actually called MUFON to come up to his roof. And they were standing there the night of March 13th when the lights appeared, and he caught what looks kind of like an arrowhead, and all you need to do is look at the data. Those lights are attached to something. They're just rock-solid information. Now, some 15, 20 minutes later, and this is interesting timing, the 2 boomerangs were shot, okay, at least 15 minutes later. And one of them is so perfect. I mean, Kristen's boomerang, which they try to discredit constantly as being flares, is just really stunning when you look at it. I mean, flares just can't do that, just stay in that rock-solid formation. I mean, even, Dr. Bruce Maccabee said that the lights moved down and to the left. Well, so what? They all moved as a unit, just like the air traffic controller said. So, if it's an unknown, that could be moving down and to the left. Doesn't mean it's flares. But the other one is kind of haphazard, I have to tell you, the other boomerang, and I have never used that because it may be flares. But anyway, that's the truth of it. I mean, the 2 before 10 o'clock, I have to say, are pretty suspect for not being flares, and the 2 after maybe, but the boomerangs. But that's the only case that anybody can make. But like you said, the video doesn't do it justice. And when we saw this in real life, there's no way they could have been flares.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I hadn't seen anything there that looked like flares. And I did see some flare drops in the area when they were dropping them, but they just don't look the same. And the point you made earlier about when they came out and did it to shows, I was ignorant on their point, because really when you're seeing the flares and the smoke trails and the way the light is luminous, anybody who's ever spent any time outside at New Year's and see people shoot flares in there, you can kind of tell the way the light pulses coming down. I mean, it's something people should be familiar with seeing from sometime in their life. So I don't know, and I don't think from all the people I've talked to that anybody thought it was a flare. I mean, not anybody I've talked to.
Well, people still do. I mean, that amazes me, and you know, just what you just said is so poignant, because right before the 10th anniversary, for a reason, the military sent off a line of flares. And a lot of people got excited. I got out there with my camera, and immediately I could see that they were flares. I mean, if to the trained eye, you could see that they were falling haphazardly, slowly, but they were falling, and you could see through the viewfinder of the camera that there were smoke trails. And the next morning I got calls from, you know, all the TV stations who have been very kind to me, I have to tell you. I mean, that's another story if we have time to get into the positive transformation here locally, particularly with not only the witnesses but also with the media. They've been so kind and really accepting that something is going on here, and the ridicule and the snickering has, you know, pretty much fallen by the wayside, unless there's a new person that comes in town that's not familiar with the Phoenix Lights. It might make them uncomfortable, so they giggle. But at any rate, I got calls the next morning from a number of the stations, and they said, "Oh, did you see the lights last night? Everybody's been calling us." I said, "Don't get so excited." They were flares. I said, "But you know what? I got some footage of it. This is a perfect time to educate the public to what flares look like and the difference between flares and the unknowns." And actually the CNN affiliate, Scott Davis, who was the producer there at the time, you know, looked at the footage and you know, you could just see. I mean, when you know what to look for, and you know, and it was an opportunity to you know, teach the public the difference, and that's the most important thing. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I've been doing educational programs for youth for 35 years, and the community as well. And, you know, education is the best protection. And right now I'm actually working on a comprehensive curriculum called Out of the Box on this very subject of unexplained phenomena. And in a very gentle way, my other programs, my AIDS and teen pregnancy and substance abuse prevention education programs are being distributed by Discovery Education, and I hope that these get into the schools as well. We're trying to show the kids in a very fun, you know, non-threatening way some of the most credible data concerning these phenomena. And, you know, like crop circles, we have a senior math professor at ASU that's working on the geometry, and I'll be working with Colin Andrews, who is an expert, just to introduce the kids to crop circles, and also in art and the history timeline. Richard Olin is contributing, as well as Dr. Bruce McAbee, and which I'm very grateful. I mean, we're trying to get experts in the field to contribute some of their expertise, or at least know that how important it is. Because I have to tell you, the one thing that prompted me to do the documentary, because I went back to work as a chief clinical consultant at the Arizona Heart Institute Wellness and Imaging Center while I was paring down the 750-page journal. And I didn't know what to do with it. I have to say, I mean, it was just, you know, a real heartstring, you know, I just didn't know what to do. And I finally did come forward and was very pleased and blessed that people appreciated all the work that went into it. But besides that, I was doing Barnes & Noble and Borders tours on the weekends and radio programs like this into the night, and working full-time, and approached by filmmakers to do a documentary, which I really wanted to do, something visually, but I had no time. And Steve Lance was very persistent. His parents live here, and he said he was coming in May and bringing his equipment. And I said, whoa. I said, first of all, I don't have time, and secondly, I don't know if people will come forward. I mean, I stayed anonymous for 7 years. I don't know if The witnesses that emailed me in confidence their sighting, and the professors I worked with would do this precarious for them to do this topic. And every single one except one was so wholeheartedly yes, and the one person did come on board later on. But the bottom line is that what happened was that I got invited by parents to a middle school. And this really did it. And I walked into 200 students in a cafeteria or auditorium, and you could hear a pin drop. It was the last period of the day. The teachers couldn't believe it. They were sitting on the edge of their chairs. They would thirst for this knowledge. And I realized for the first time that there is nothing, absolutely nothing, zip, zero, nada, in our history books about this topic. So that really prompted me to do the documentary. And once I started in production, by the end of June, I just, I couldn't be 5 people and had to make a choice. And that's when I decided to move forward with the documentary and haven't looked back since. And now we're working on the curriculum, which I'm so excited. I mean, part of it is, really teaching kids critical thinking. What if we're not alone? How would that change our world? What would we tell them about us? As well as conflict resolution. If we can't resolve our own conflicts peacefully, how to have any kind of connection with another intelligence that could be very different from us. I mean, that's the other issue here, because we may not be just dealing, and that's another thing. So long we've been just dealing with the nuts and bolts of these phenomena. It's time to move to the next step and realize that, it might not just be interstellar or intrastellar, but interdimensional. And that's one of the reasons that I'm sharing for the first time an analysis that Dr. Bruce Maccabee did. He's been very involved with this case, and I'm so grateful for that he did of my close sighting pictures, the first and the last picture, which he meticulously analyzed and saw things in there that I would have never, ever, there's no way I would have noticed this. And sharing for the first time in over a dozen years since he analyzed it in 1998 and actually presented the case in 1999. This is all in the latest edition of my book. I never thought I would share this. It's just too bizarre, and there's much more to the story, but it may be important. I mean, now that quantum physics and quantum mechanics is catching up, what Dr. Maccabee saw actually was not only the same phenomena in the background disappearing in the pictures in 95, as I would also capture in 97, 2 months before and during the mass sighting, but he noticed that the skyline was different. And I didn't even get it. He says, look, there's many lights on that are in the first picture that are off in the last picture. And he said, you told me that it was only a couple of minutes or so. I said, that's what I remember. And he had me ask my husband. He confirmed that, 2, 3, 4 minutes tops to us. He said, that's impossible. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, if you look at the pictures, and anybody that's near a website and wants to get on the photo page, it's the second and third picture there, the first and last picture of the close sighting. You can see that in the first picture, there are many groups of lights on that in the first picture that are off in the last picture. And he did a meticulous analysis of those two pictures, putting one on top of the other to show where those groups of lights, and there's 5, 6, 7 groups of lights that are off. And we're not even talking individual lights. We're talking groups of lights. He said, I want you to do an experiment. He said, go out on your balcony and look at the skyline and take pictures from approximately where you were standing in 95. One night every hour, the next night every half hour. I also did it every 15 minutes just to make sure I had the data. And then we'll see when I start going out. Well, my husband called me out of the bath to see the lights in the first place. One wall of our bedroom is a window, and he called me out of the bath because he saw something really startling, and which isn't like him, and to get over here quick, which I did. And I usually take a bath between 7 and 8 in the evenings when I'm home. So let's be conservative and start at 8 o'clock. As far as the experiment goes, the lights started going out at 9 o'clock from the skyline. And the last picture is indicative of 10:30, 11 o'clock. Now, he says to me he'd like to present this case at the upcoming MUFON International Symposium in Washington, D.C., 1999. I didn't know what he was talking about. I mean, I could not wrap my head around this. I said, all I ask is that you don't use my name, and I want to remain anonymous, do my homework. And he graciously agreed. And he presented the case for the first time ever. Now, this was in 1999. And as the bottom line is it wasn't just minutes in between those pictures. There were hours. And he presented it as the first authenticated photographic evidence of missing time. And as far as we know, maybe the only evidence of missing time. But the reason I'm sharing it now, and I never thought I'd ever share it, by the way, Joe, because it's just too bizarre. I remember very little from that sighting other than my husband calling me to the window. There were 3 orbs, one on top and 2 closely aligned underneath. I tried to take everything in mentally, the size, the shape, the color. They were about 3 to 6 feet each, depending on how close or far they were. They were oval-shaped, like an egg on its side. There were 3 distinct objects. They were hovering about 50, 75 feet above a very treacherous incline behind a private gated home. And there's no way anybody was there, and it was pitch black. And there seemed to be an intelligence behind them. In fact, when I ran to the closet to grab my camera, because I thought, if I don't get a picture of this, nobody's going to believe it, my husband called me back. He says, get over here quick. One of them is disappearing. And the top orb started to, and I call it an orb because the light didn't extend outside the edge. And by the way, it didn't glare at all. Every other light out there glared. These did not. They were very soothing, mesmerizing. And he says, get over here quick. One of them is disappearing. And we watched the top orb, without budging from the other 2, start to implode very, very slowly. It was like dimming, but mechanically. It's very hard to describe. Just getting smaller and smaller and smaller until it was a dot, but mechanically. And even after it appeared, it felt like it was still there. I have to admit, where did it go? But it felt like it was still there. Anyway, I went out on the balcony, got a quick picture of the 2 lower orbs. That's that first picture on the website, and immediately noticed an eerie silence, as if time had stopped. It was very bizarre. And as intently as I was watching, I couldn't take my eyes off these 2 bottom orbs. It felt that something was watching me. And you'll appreciate this, Joe, right? And it going through my mind, I was thinking, who are you? What are you? Do you know that I'm here? I'd love to meet you. And the next thing I remember, the left bottom orb disappear, and just something told me to click a picture, and I did. And that was the only one at the time that turned out. But for me, it was miraculous because I happened to catch one half disappeared. It's right there, and one still there. But I didn't even know who to show it to, okay, and wondered what this advanced technology was. And that's all I remember. I really vaguely remember the last one going out, and I don't even remember going inside. My husband was inside and going to bed that night. But at any rate, that's what I remember. So when he was telling me all this, it was just beyond me. But now that I have come forward with the other data, and quantum mechanics and quantum physics is now talking about the possibilities of bubble theory and string theory with 10 or 11 different dimensions, if that's the case, then number one, linear time may be very primitive, okay? The past, present, and future are not what time really is. And if this data can show that and even go a step further, if there's other times and spaces along with ours, why is it such a leap to think that there may be other intelligent beings in those other times and spaces that we get glimpses of if we're open or invited? So I thought it was time that I share this, and I was asked to actually write another book, and I didn't want to do that, not only because it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but even more, it's really important that people read the first book. So the latest edition, which is actually the 3rd edition, has the same exact book as the original, but there's another chapter on additional sightings, such as Stephenville, and we're going to be doing a women's medical symposium, Paula Harris has organized a wonderful panel of women. There's also men involved in the conference. But we're going to be down in Glen Rose, Texas in May. I'm speaking May 19th, which would be really fun. Stephenville had a very similar sighting in many ways to the Phoenix Lights, and it's happening worldwide. And it's really cool that now, this many years later, when in 2004 it was blown off as military flares, that people around the world, when they see orbs or V's, giant craft, right away it pops in their head, the Phoenix, which is really cool.
No, it really is. The whole case I found really fascinating. And then, what you were just talking about, I'd actually talked with Bruce about that because, abduction is what I specializes in. And anytime
I call it contact because for me, it's only been positive.
Yeah, well, no, see, we don't, even with the word abduction, we use abduction in a loose fashion organization, meaning that it's someone without full recall. Our contactees mostly don't have full recall, but they have a lot of recall. And then it steps up. There's like 4 levels that we use now because literally we've got more than 10,000 cases on file. So the thing about it is, for us, it's a little bit different. We look at it differently than everybody else. But when Bruce and I were talking about this, because he had said something about the photographs, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting in itself, because one of the things we've always maintained is 99% of people who have sightings are contactees. And the reason why is because they're prone to see the ship. That's why most of the planet, put this in perspective. 1992, Mexico City. 1 million people saw a UFO. But there's 22 million people in Mexico City. So why didn't the other 21 million see it? I mean, it was the middle of the day. It's lunchtime. The thing's hovering. Sat there and hovered, basically, they said, for almost 20 hours. Still, only 1 million people seen it out of 22 million. It's one of the largest sightings ever. It's one of Jaime Maussan's favorites. But the thing about it is only 10 people saw it. Same thing in New York. It's like with the lady, now I lost her name, shame on me, when the ambassador and the CIA agent seen her floating out of her window. New York's a big city with a lot of people. Why were they only ones that seen it? Some people are prone to see these. And I know in a lot of the cases that we get, in a lot of the video we get, these are people who have had experiences. Now, when it comes to the Phoenix Lights, it's hard to say because, I did hear probably more than 200 or 300 people make reports, but Phoenix is a big city. 3-4 million people in Phoenix?
Well, there's over 10,000 people that saw the Phoenix Lights throughout the state.
So even if you got 5 million people, at 10,000 would be less than 1%. See, for us, it's a much different game because we see things in a much different light than even most ufologists do. I mean, we have way more case lists than anybody else does, so it gives us kind of a unique view on this. And really, anytime somebody tells me they have more than 15 or 20 times missing, more than 15 or 20 minutes of missing time, or they've had gains or what we call even time, I instantly start thinking, what happened here? And when Bruce brought that up to me, I know we get close to the commercial break, but when Bruce brought that up, I was like, I never really had thought about it, because the Phoenix Lights is a classic sighting. I consider it a classic sighting. A lot of people saw it. A lot of people, seemed to participate in when it was going on. But then over the years, I have interviewed several people from that who had sightings that were definitely what we would consider to be contactees. So when he brought this up, I was kind of like, it does make sense, especially if she was taking the photo right as they picked up. In other words, a lot of times a contactee will see the UFO on approach, and then they will not see the UFO again until they set them down. And we consider this as a trigger, a cover memory. This is something to let you know that an event just took. Because a lot of the memories, even when it's a friendly contact with alien, they still are aliens and we are humans. And a lot of times we don't have what I would call the best reactions. It makes us a little nervous. It makes us a little panicky. It makes us a little freaked out a little bit.
I'm just the opposite, Joe. I'm sorry. And I know that there's people, it's just like Dr. Gary Schwartz. He said it so well in the documentary, that if you're afraid of something and you see something that you're afraid of, how do you think you're going to react? And Dr. Ruth Hover, who just passed, which is, my heart is so heavy. She's such a fabulous, fabulous person, and as well as a psychologist who had a contact groups for decades, also made the remark, which I thought was so poignant, particularly in the Phoenix Lights case, because over and over again you would hear people not be afraid at all. As I mentioned earlier, there wasn't one report of harm, threat, or abduction associated with the Phoenix Lights. It was just the opposite. People were in joy. People were in awe. They were in wonder. They were excited. The kids wanted to run after it. I mean, it was just a totally different thing. And for myself included, I mean, here, again, I mean, from the get-go, for me personally, and Dr. Ruth Hover makes the remark, when somebody shares their experience, and this is so poignant, it tells more about them than it does about the experience. If someone is a scared type person, they're going to be frightened. They're going to be freaked out. If someone is kind of a pissy type person, they're going to be ticked off. How dare they do that to me? And if someone's open, with an open heart and an open mind, which to me is the first step for really welcoming whoever it is, because I don't know what they are. But it makes it a totally different experience when you are open to it, as it's been for me. I mean, I've really done a lot of soul searching, and it's been an amazing experience. In fact, Bruce even mentioned and wrote that, if this hadn't happened, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Something inspired me. Something gave me the motivation to do what I'm doing, and for me, it's only positive. So I've been very blessed, and I feel blessed. And the people that had the experience of the Phoenix Lights over and over feel that they've been blessed with their experience. And a lot of other people wish they had the experience. So, I keep saying just keep looking up, because whatever passed over Arizona, and it's happening worldwide, it's happened for decades. I mean, we have pictures of the Lubbock Lights that are very similar. We have documentation in Hudson Valley sightings that were similar, as well as UK and Belgium in the 90s. And Belgium actually is an example of what should happen. They got together with the university and civilians and military to try to really study these phenomena. That's what should happen. And then you have, the Stephenville Lights as well in Illinois and in Ohio. I mean, everywhere. And as you mentioned earlier, which is kind of cool, now that we have phones, cell phones and the internet and social networking, I mean, sometimes I get posts from someone in Ohio or Michigan that's seeing something. Is anybody seeing this now? Which is what should happen. That's so cool. I mean, I hope that we can progress and be open to this and not be frightened of these things. I can't speak for other things out there, but I can speak about the Phoenix Lights. And certainly that has been a study in a positive transformation. In fact, when I was interviewing other witnesses, a number of them said to me that they had near-death experiences as children that was reawakened by the mass sighting. And I was taken aback, because I did too. And I get into the whole experience it's all out there. I really go into detail in the book. But the bottom line is I thought, geez, if other people are having that same kind of experience, could there be a connection between all unexplained phenomena, be it near-death experience, out-of-body experience, unexplained aerial phenomena that have a mystical light associated with the experience? And lo and behold, and again, Joe, I've really tried to be so scientific with this and find the most credible data out there. And I found the Omega Project, for one, at the University of Connecticut, massive book. I mean, it's like 4 inches thick. But he was finding a very, very intimate connection between all unexplained phenomena, as was Dr. Raymond Fowler, who did the Andreessen case, and as well as others, Dr. Bruce Grayson and others in the near-death experience genre. And what really got me, and I lay it out very simply in the book, is that not only is the experience very similar in all unexplained phenomena, but the after effect is so positive. I mean, even Dr. Ruth Hover, and you may have, had that same kind of experience. And I was just with Yvonne Smith speaking at the International UFO Congress last week, and she shared with me too that even when someone's initially afraid or annoyed or whatever the situation is with, and that's one of the reasons I came forward as a physician to say that it's important to talk about this and to get it out there, because with therapy and with the proper time and care, people come full circle and actually again have a positive experience. But anyway, with the Phoenix Lights and with other unexplained phenomena, the positive after effect is so profound, meaning the enlightenment that happens within an individual who truly experiences what I call an unexplained phenomena, a connection to the universe and to the earth and to each other, is realized that they never have been even thought of before in such a strong, positive way. So, and I really did a study about it, and you certainly can read it in the book, I hope you do, to show this positive after effect. We have people in Arizona that changed their eating habits to vegetarian. We have others that went into the peace movement and the environmental movement.
Tell them get off them veggies. Get off. You know there's no Centaurians alive today that's a vegetarian, right? Just so you know that. All the Centaurians alive today, and actually the guy who's the oldest person in the world eats beef pretty regularly and drinks every day. And he's 116, I think, right now, 118. We did a study on that just recently. When it came to Centaurians, what were their diet habits?
Mm-hmm.
But it ain't about diet; it's about stress.
Yeah. I'm just sharing that people have really been affected in a very, very deep way, in many different ways, from experience.
Well, it should be. Anytime you have a profound experience, it should. Mm-hmm. It should. Give you at least some kind of positive life. I know we got to go to break, but it really should. It really should. It's a strange thing the way all this happens, and this has a lot to do with people's personalities and their individual ideas on the universe and what they think about God and several other things that determines a lot of these experiences. But when it comes to alien abduction, it goes far beyond any of that.
You know what, Joe?
Far beyond that.
I don't even go there, and I wanted to end on a very positive note because.
Oh no, it's a good thing. Well, no, it's not that it's bad. That's not what I was meaning.
No.
By the way, I don't want to listen to that either.
The message, and thank goodness there's people like yourself that welcome people that have had experiences that to them maybe weren't pleasant. But I go there. To me, this is contact, and what happened with the Phoenix Lights is a very positive thing that we can be joyous about and can look at in a very positive light. And the message, not only from the Phoenix Lights, but is given from all unexplained phenomena. I think this is really the crux of the whole thing. Not only are they trying to wake us up to their presence in a gentle, non-threatening way. Again, there has not been one report, not one, of harm, threat, or abduction associated with the Phoenix Lights. But the other part of this is they're also trying to wake us up to who we are as human beings, the positive potential we have to make this a better world. And I'd really like to end on that note, because that to me is the most important message that people are getting, not only from the Phoenix Lights, but from near-death experiences. When you look over and over again, when they come back from their experiences, that's the message, to wake up to what we're doing to ourselves and our planet before it's too late. And, I hope people will pick up the book, The Phoenix Lights, A Skeptic's Discovery That We Are Not Alone. And it was 750 pages. There's a lot more to this story in there as well. And come join us. The documentary is out there. There is a book and the documentary are on Amazon.com and bookstores and all that good stuff, and Netflix. And I'll keep you posted with the curriculum, because it's important.
No, don't go anywhere yet. We still got like 45 minutes. We just got to take a break.
No, we don't.
Oh, we don't? Oh, okay. Well, we got to take a break.
I thought it was an hour. I thought it was.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. But I still got to go to break no matter what, because I'm way over on time, and I got other things that come in. But ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lynne Kitei, she will be linked up on the site all week. All you got to do is go there, click her face, takes you right to the Phoenix Lights page. Click the book, takes you right to the book page. It's real easy, ladies and gentlemen. Run over there, click. It's not real hard. It's an easy thing to do. Go check it out. Actually, she's a very nice lady. I've met her. I will be in Glen Rose, Texas, by the way.
Oh, good.
I'll be there. Yes, we will be broadcasting live from the conference, and we will be working as press down there as well. So we will be down there. I had talked with Paula a couple of weeks ago, and I told her to come on down, and we're going to bring a few friends with us and come hang out and see what's going on. So I look forward to seeing you there. It's always great having you on. I always enjoy talking to you.
Thank you, Joe.
The Phoenix
really
Lights is it's always an interesting case. I mean, I got a lot of friends with that in Phoenix, by the way, and in the general area out there as well. So it's always good to keep up to what's going on out there.
Well, that's
and
great.
That way when they call and ask me, I say, no, I was just on the phone with Dr. Lynne the other night, and she was telling me about it. You know, I can check out the website.
And I hope it's on March 11th at the Scottsdale Harkin Shea Theater at 1 o'clock. Get your tickets early because it's sold out every year since we had our world premiere there in 2008. And, 2005, excuse me. And, I really welcome everyone to come. It's going to be a huge event this year for the 15th anniversary. I can't believe it's been 15 years, but hopefully, and that's why I appreciate visits like this, because we can get the word out and the information out and raise awareness of the Phoenix Lights to those people who aren't aware of it or who thought that the answer was that it was flares. I can tell you right now that it was.
It's on you. Well, the Scottsdale's on. Well, I know it's not for you. I agree with you 100% on that. The Scottsdale thing is on your site, right? So when they link into your site, they
yes,
can
it is. If they get on the PhoenixLights.net, it's loaded. I really wanted to get something out there that was free, that people could enjoy and take their time and really take a look at it, because there's lots of information there that hopefully will help people to grow, and this helps too. I really appreciate it, Joe, having me on. And
it's like I said, it's always great to talk to you. And remember, guys and girls, if you can't make it to Scottsdale, Lynne will be in Glen Rose, Texas, 18th, 19th, and 20th, right, of May.
Right.
I got the date.
Right, of May.
Yeah.
That's going to be a real fun time.
Yes, that's what I told Paul. I said, y'all going to stick me in a room with 10 women dressed in red and get drinking. I said, oh, my God, I better bring a video camera with me. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you need to come out. It's going to be a great conference. It'll be a lot of fun. I know almost all the speakers. I think the only one I don't know is Tracy. But I think I know everybody else that's going to be speaking there, and everybody should be well-spoken. It should be a really good conference. Lisa Romanak will be sitting there talking about, on the other side, that's Stan Romanak's wife, who's a contact lead. And that should be interesting. You're going to be speaking on about the Phoenix Lights, but I thought there was something else, or was I missing?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be focusing on the similarity to the Stephenville Lights, which really, I mean, they're not only the oars, but they had craft as well, and it's interesting, Joe, that they did something similar. I mean, first, the military kept changing their stories back and forth. They didn't have planes up in the air, then they did have planes in the air, and Angela Joyner, who was the journalist at the time who really broke the case. I mean, she God bless her. I mean, she really got the information out there and got some of the witnesses to come forward, and she's going to be speaking there as well. And she shared with me that for days afterwards they were sending off flares. So trying to confuse the issue or whatever.
I think on any big sighting, that's going to be the new rule. Now, let's throw some flares out there to confuse people. But I just think that's just the way they're going to do business. It's any doubt that they can cast always helps them out. But actually, I think y'all did a great job with the Phoenix Lights. So keep up the good work, Dr. Lynne. It's always great to talk to you. Look forward to you seeing Glen Rose. And if anything new pops up, drop us a line.
I certainly will, and I'll keep you posted with the curriculum. And I look forward to seeing you in Texas. That's going to be really fun. Thanks so much again,
great.
Joe. Okay, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right, guys and girls, I'm going to go take a break. I should be back in about 8 to 10 minutes, and we're going to be talking about several different things, so please stay tuned.
You're listening to UFO Undercover with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Hello, everyone. Trish Sheridan, host of A Global Focus. Come join us each Friday evening at A Global Focus's new time, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Come join the discussion.
Open your mind to the high streams of UFOs, paranormal, occult, metaphysics, and politics. We always march into the apocalypse every Saturday at 11 p.m. Eastern. TheChurchOfMavis.com, ParanormalRadioNetwork.org. Jay God is watching.
Hi, this is Rob Simone, and I want to tell you about my brand new show here on the Paranormal Radio Network. Each week, I bring you the most interesting people on the planet, the most in-depth discussions, and the most controversial issues. We go where no talk show dares to go. Join me every week for the Lone Talk Show here on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Hi, I'm psychic medium Chris George.
And I'm Stephanie Benetti. Psychic medium. Are you sure about that, Chris? It's more like psychic extra large.
Yeah, real funny, but...
Tune in to UFO Undercover.
Hi, I'm psychic medium Chris George.
And I'm Stephanie Benetti. Psychic medium. Are you sure about that, Chris? It's more like psychic extra large.
Light up your night with The Kevin Smith Show. Hi, this is Kevin Smith. Join me Monday through Friday right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Hey, hi there. Got your attention? I'm Gia Scott, and I was curious what you were doing from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time on Tuesdays. See, I host this really interesting little radio program that airs live then, and we bring in all sorts of guests. Authors, experiencers, and everything in between. It's paranormal and guaranteed to make you go, My guest list is always up at www.giascott.com, and do tune in to the Dawn of Shades from 7 to 9 p.m. on Tuesdays.
I had enough.
Well, you drove out there into the middle of nowhere and had some sort of loud verbal display challenging E.T. in general out in the middle of nowhere?
That's what I was doing. I actually had a pistol in my hand at the time. I was really kicked off. When I was having this fit, I was waving the gun in the air, okay, and I had this fit. And at this moment, I said, okay.
He was a Louisiana man named Montaldo. Folks around called him Six Gun Joe. Works with ICAR, don't you know? Investigating UFOs. Out for a drive with a gal one night, they stopped to check out the reporting site. When an alien lit right there on the ground, he commenced to throwing his weight around. Now, old Six Gun didn't take too kindly to that kind of thing, especially without Vaseline or, search. Well, Six Gun looked that critter right in the eye and said, any last wish before you die, yo? Reached for his quick as a twitch and said, fill your claw, you son of a bitch. Now, a legend spread across the land about this pistol-waving man. The But if you're from space or from Earth below, you don't give no lip to Six Gun Joe.
Welcome to UFO Undercover with your host, Joe Montaldo. Welcome to UFO Undercover with your host, Joe Montaldo.
Who was that? Joe Montaldo? I'm not sure who that is. No. I hope that you enjoyed the first hour of the show, guys, with Dr. Lynne Kitei and the Phoenix Lights. A lot there to go over. Actually, Stephen Besetsky was going to be a second-hour guest, but I'm having a little trouble getting him, so there's actually quite a few things I wanted to be chatting about, so give me a chance. I will continue to try to get him on the air while we're chit-chatting. But, you know, I was doing a show on human aliens about a week ago, and I really didn't get to get into everything that I wanted to get into. There's a lot of information there I want to cover, and there's a lot of stuff I really want to go over. Frankly, it's not a subject I get to broach often. And usually we're talking about reptilians, or we're talking about grays, or we're talking about light beings or anything else, but such a lot of misgivings to human aliens. One, everybody thinks they're peace, love, and light, and they're here to kiss your butt. Not true. These are the guys who used to bring information to Hitler. I mean, this is something that y'all need to remember. His fair-haired angels that used to tell him how to do genetic experiments. Oh, yeah, these are the guys we want coming to our planet. Remember, and this is most important, okay, whatever you believe in, whatever you think is here, whatever aliens you think may or may not be visiting you, remember this. Until they call you on the phone and say, hey, Erica, I am coming to abduct you, they are doing harm to you. I don't give a care how good the experience is or how bad the experience is, okay? It doesn't matter. Until they call and notify you ahead of time, they are breaking your will, all right? No one should be taking against their will without being asked first. Now, I understand when you're children and they're taking you as an abductee and you're taking you this way and taking you that way. Okay, we can get away with that. We can even say during the early years of puberty. Okay, but once you're 25, 30, 35, 40 years old, I mean, come on. You're in the awakening. They should be asking you. Hey, I mean, most contactees get a sense that they're coming, a tingling, some kind of weird thing. Some of them are a little bit more advanced, and that the keepers a lot of times know what areas they are and where they're working and stuff like that, and they sense them and feel them a long time in advance. But that's still not the same thing. It's not Mr. Bob the Gray calling Jason and saying, Jason, hey, look, man, I'm coming by you and Joe's tomorrow afternoon while y'all are out in the cow pasture, be prepared. No, that's not what the hell they do, all right? It's not what they're doing. Jason and Joe's going to be out there laid on the hood of the car, watching the beautiful sky, looking at UFOs, and poof, they're going to be gone. They're going to some stuff done to them, poof, they're going to be back. Well, not quite poof, but they may have some fragmented memories. They may have more than fragmented memories, but still, the gray, the human, or the reptilian, or the light being, for that matter, did not ask their permission. Period. And I don't want to hear you gave permission in another lifetime. That was another lifetime. That is not this one, people. All right, I don't want to hear that. That's a bullshit excuse. Save that for somebody else. That is not this lifetime. Did you give them permission in this lifetime? No, you did not. Because you wouldn't be telling me you gave them permission in the last lifetime if you did. Anyway, well, I get a lot of this, and I want people to understand. I don't think the aliens are all evil or all bad. I mean, they've got their good sides, they've got their bad sides, just like most things in the universe. that is not what I think it is, and I think they have many agendas, and I think some agendas will be positive for man, some not so much. And I think sticking your head in the sand like an ostrich and not paying attention to what's going on and what everyone is saying is stupid. Okay? See, for me, it's much different. You know, when I first got involved with this third one, and then we founded the Yahoo group 11 years ago, and we all got to talk. We spent a lot of time in ancient history. I mean, in ancient history, a lot. And people like November Hanson and Jason Wilson and a few other of my friends back from them, if one of us said something about the ancients, you could bet you know what, that at least a dozen people were going to go check what you just said. Okay? And let me tell you, you better be spot on, because if not, they're going to challenge you and argue you the whole way, up or down. All right? And I tell this to people every week. If you're going to get involved in ufology, the best place to start is in ancient history and work your way forward. It's a really simple concept. Start with the Sumerians and work forward. You'll be amazed at the things you find. Amazed. I mean, the amount of information in ancient history is not even funny. There's tons of it there. There's lots of pictures of UFOs. There's lots of descriptions of extraterrestrials. But now we're going to clarify. The human and the reptilians seem to have been here first. Whether the reptilians are native or not, that's going to be an argument for years to come. Amphibians. But they did come before the graves. The earliest we can find anything about the graves is around 3000. That's when the picture shows up on the temple and hieroglyphs in Egypt. That's when some of the other descriptions show up in other places in the world, around 3,000 years, about 500 years before Christ, is when they show up. But the reptilians and the humans show up much earlier than that, much earlier than that. They're there with the Sumerians. They're there with the start of man. We don't know how much earlier for real, because none of us were around and there's no writings about it. We do know things like pictures of different types of craft were found in cave drawings that date back 50,000 years. So it's not that they weren't here. We just don't know what they were doing. And you know, we do kind of have an idea which ones it might have been, and it might have been along those lines. But anyway, these are things that, you know, most of the time we don't get to talk about it. It's not stuff we get to broach a lot. And I really want people to really start to pay attention to what's going on. Actually, 101, we used to do a lot of Ufology 101 back in the day, a lot of Ufology 101. Be honest with you, I have directors that I call that specialize in 101. I don't do so much 101 anymore. It's not that I don't think it's useful. I think everybody should know it. I think everybody should know the basics. But frankly, like most of the people in the virtual auditorium, except for the new people coming in from Facebook tonight, 101 is rough, man, when you've been doing this for 30 years. Now, I got to be honest with you, it's tough. It's a tough place to go, man. I mean, really, it really is. It's just a tough place to go. It's hard to discuss. But, you know, being that there's this much good information out there, and so much better than what most people really understand, especially in the abduction fields, it's amazing to me that we're still as ignorant as a community as we are. Really, I am. It amazes me. One more thing, I'm getting ready to bring Stephen Bassett on with it in just a minute. One quick thing. I had posted a link about 2 new blood types found. If anybody's got any confirmation on these, I would love to get it. To me, you know, this will help explain some of the stuff that we work with on the blood type study that we have going with ICAR right now. If, for some reason, you know, I'd like to make sure. I mean, I went and checked the American Medical Association site the other day. I couldn't find anything. And then I went to the Doctors Association, and I still couldn't find anything. I'm positive this is legit, but I would really like to get a second source on it. So if anybody's got any other information out there, why don't you pop a line over to icar@cox.net and send me another link or send me something peer-reviewed or somewhere along those lines, because it is something that I really, really want to check into, and it is something that I really want to add overall to what we're doing, because it is important to add it to the website. You know, it's going on. We need to keep up with it.
Hi, this is Steve. How you doing?
Hey, Steve. We live, by the way, man. I was calling you while I was talking about something else before we came in. Guys, we're going to leave that on that. I have Stephen Bassett with us. If you don't know who Stephen Bassett is by now, stop watching the show is all I can tell you. Y'all should be ashamed of yourself. No, really, Stephen. Come on, they should be ashamed of this. Even if you're 101, like we were just talking about, y'all should know who Stephen Bassett is. I'm just going to be honest with you about this. Paradigm research is foremost in there. I mean, he's an activist. He's got his hands, I'm going to be honest with you, he's got his hands in everything. I'm not going to lie to y'all, but still, when it comes to activists, he's really the only true activist this field has. I mean, we all do our own thing, but Stephen's the one out there aggravating the government, harassing people, which, by the way, I got to give you credit for that. I still don't like messing with the government. I went and signed the petitions, mind you, but still, I do not like messing with the government. Welcome, anyway. See, we ran late, too. We had Lynne Kitei was on with me tonight, and we ended up running late, so me and you are going to take as much time as we need.
Sure. It's good to be with you.
Love having you on. Oh, I heard you on Kevin Smith. Was it last night?
Might have been.
Before, maybe it was. I caught that on there. Yeah, always a great, and of course, Kevin cracks me up. I think he's one thing that
Sure.
So what are you up to now? I mean, I know you're always into something, but what are you up to now?
There's an important project underway, Joe, as you know, and it's the White House petition project. Most people in the country don't know about it, even though it's up on the White House website, because the White House hasn't promoted it heavily. I think they're afraid they might get swamped.
Too much attention. Yeah.
That's true. But that's a good program. It's, in short, starting on September 22nd, they invited Americans to submit petitions to the White House where people could sign. Signatures would be recorded, published, on any issue they wanted. And if they got enough signatures in 30 days, the White House would actually respond, formal response. I believe somewhere between 10 and 20,000 petitions have been submitted since September the 22nd. About 400 were able to obtain the minimum 150 signatures that allow them to be posted on the site itself. And of those 400 or so, about 65 got the necessary signatures which would trigger a White House response. That amount was 5,000 signatures in 30 days at the beginning, and then they upped it to 25,000. So that's what's going on at whitehouse.gov, We the People.
Well, I got to say, I really think the 25,000 was because of you. I don't think it was because of anybody else. I'm going to be honest with you.
No, it was because they were buried in petitions, and they didn't want to have to respond to a couple thousand petitions. I can appreciate that.
Well, I can appreciate that, too, but this is a particular subject matter. I read the formal response from the person. I remember when you posted that, and I was just like, I just couldn't believe the way they worded it. I'm thinking, have you not looked in your own records? Have you not even watched television? I mean, what are you smoking up there? I couldn't get past it. It was one of those responses that, and I hate to say it this way, but this is somebody who is just absolutely not educated in anything that the U.S. government does, apparently, because there is no way that they can say they have no information about UFOs. Now, I didn't say, ladies and gentlemen, about extraterrestrial craft or anything else. I said UFOs, unidentified flying object, and God knows there's lots of UFOs up in the sky that are not ETs. So,
Joe,
the government...
Joe, we need to background your audience here, because I'm pretty sure they're not quite sure what we're talking about. Let me frame this for them. What's happened is that Paradigm Research Group learned about this petition process and immediately recognized the implications of it. So, on September the 22nd, what I call Disclosure Petition 1 was submitted to the White House under the We the People program. The intention of that petition was to go right to the heart of the issue and attempt to get a White House position statement on it. And let me read the initial petition, which I kind of think made a little history here. But this is the petition that was submitted on September 22nd to the White House website, We the People. Disclosure Petition 1, the Paradigm Research Group. We, the undersigned, strongly urge the President of the United States to formally acknowledge an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race and immediately release into the public domain all files from all agencies and military services relevant to this phenomenon. And then you're allowed a certain amount of information. You're only allowed 800 characters for the body of the submission. Hundreds of military and government agency witnesses have come forward with testimony confirming this extraterrestrial presence. Opinion polls now indicate more than 50% of the American people believe there is an extraterrestrial presence, and more than 80% believe the government is not telling the truth about this phenomenon. The people have a right to know the people can handle the truth. That was well submitted. Within an hour, it had 150 signatures. Within 4 days, it had the 5,000 signatures required within 30 days to get a response from the White House. All well and good. Now, some people misunderstood this. They thought the purpose of this petition was to get Obama to disclose, like he would ultimately got 12,000 signatures, and he would see that and say, oh, I guess I have to tell the American people about the ET president. No. The purpose of the petition was to get a response from the White House, which we did. Now, that response came on November the 4th. It was written by the Office of Science and Technology Policy, a staffer there, which is headed by Dr. John Holden, the science advisor to the president. This staffer did not go and investigate the entire phenomenon and everything that we know about it for 60 years. He was simply told what to write, and he wrote it. And the response was not unpredictable, but a little surprising. It was about 9 paragraphs, and it was a very hard-line response. Let me read the first 2 paragraphs. Note the wording. Note the use of the language submitted, which is very important. And then, of course, the key second paragraph. The title, and by the way, this response is still up on the White House website, and We the People under Responses. It's been up there since September the 20th. Well, the response has been up since November the 4th, which is what, almost November, December, 3 months, which is great. This is what we wanted. The response goes as follows. Searching for ET, but no evidence yet. Thank you for signing the petition asking the Obama administration to acknowledge an extraterrestrial presence here on Earth. I love that language. Now the key paragraph. The U.S. government has no evidence this outside our planet, or that an extraterrestrial presence has contacted or engaged any members of the human race. In addition, and this is the killer, there is no credible information to suggest that any evidence is being hidden from the public's eye. Well, Joe, I guess you know that a whole lot of people in ICAR and people that listen to your show are quite aware that this statement is completely false.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not just that. Yeah, I'm sure you did. It's not that. It's also indefensible, which is important as well, meaning that no member of the White House could go in front of a camera and debate a high, one of the better top researchers or advocates, activists on this, and have any chance of defending that position. It would just not even be a fair fight. But it's also notable for something else, and this is what a lot of people don't get. And this was the purpose of the petition. This is the first formal written statement by the executive branch of the U.S. government on the UFO ET issue ever. Now, there's a reason why they didn't do this before. Because they understood by putting out a statement, a position, that they would be issuing a stationary target that they couldn't walk away from, they couldn't deny. This is their position, and therefore anyone can go after that position. And if they can break it, well, they break the truth embargo. This is what we wanted, and this is what we got. So by being as hardline as it was, it's actually much more useful to the advocacy movement, and we had that as of November the 4th, 2011. The next step, Joe, was for PRG to go after that formal position by the White House and break it. Now, there's a number of ways we're going to do that, but first and foremost, we're going to actually use the We the People petition project